With a career spanning nearly 30 years, Daft Punk is considered to be one of the most influential acts in dance music history. They've sold millions of records, won several Grammy Awards, revolutionized electronic music, and directly inspired many of today's top artists, ranging from Tame Impala to Kylie Minogue. Despite being so influential, the members of Daft Punk are notoriously secretive. Their simultaneous fame and anonymity makes them perfect subjects for the Iceberg format. There is surface level stuff that most people are aware of, and a plethora of obscure topics that only the most dedicated of fans know about. Several Daft Punk Iceberg images already exist, and there's even a video attempting to explain one of them, but it's clear they oftentimes didn't know what they were talking about. After watching this video and quite frankly getting frustrated at its inaccuracies and common misconceptions, I decided to make my own ultimate Daft Punk Iceberg image and spent the past 3 months working on this video, which is only the first part of a 4-part series. I honestly prefer when these Iceberg videos are one really long upload as opposed to being broken up into several parts, but I found that doing it that way caused me to lose focus, and breaking it up into several parts has helped me be more productive. When I eventually finish part 4, I plan on combining all of the parts into one long video, which is much more convenient for everyone, so look forward to that. And in case you're wondering who I am, I go by Wub, and for the past 8 years I've been a huge Daft Punk fan. I consider myself a lot of things: a historian, an archivist, a collector, and I basically spend all of my free time researching Daft Punk and making any information about them as accessible as possible, whether it be through my fan account on Twitter, my channel here on YouTube, or my website, The Daft Punk Historian. So I'm really excited to be making this series, even though it is a lot of work. If you'd like to support my efforts in finishing this series, it'd be greatly appreciated if you liked and shared this video. So with all that out of the way, please enjoy part 1 of the Ultimate Daft Punk Iceberg Explained. Tier 1. Robot Personas. While Daft Punk may be an internationally acclaimed music duo who've sold millions of records, most people wouldn't be able to recognize them on the street. This is because Daft Punk adopted robot personas in the year 2000, which they've diligently used ever since whenever appearing in the media. Now, there is a great amount of backstory and history regarding the robots, which we'll get into in a later video, but for now, all we really need to know is that Daft Punk appear as sleek, gold and silver robots in the media, and that's how most people know them. Studio albums. Daft Punk have released 4 studio albums throughout their career, beginning with Homework in January 1997, Discovery in March 2001, Human After All in March 2005, and finishing off with Random Access Memories in May 2013. This body of work is what most people are familiar with when it comes to Daft Punk, although they have much more to offer, which we'll get more into throughout this series. Get Lucky. Get Lucky is Daft Punk's most well-known and commercially successful track, being released in April 2013 and topping many charts around the world. It was impossible to escape this track back in 2013 and was hailed by many as the song of the summer. Featuring on the track are the legendary Nile Rodgers on rhythm guitar and the charismatic Pharrell Williams on vocals. Get Lucky was released ahead of Daft Punk's 4th studio album, Random Access Memories, and was a huge shift in sound, coming from the duo who helped popularize several electronic music mainstays like repetitive loops and heavy filters. Some longtime fans were off-put by their shift in sound, but Daft Punk felt they needed to inject some life back into the dance music world, given how sterilized they felt a lot of the production had become with the homogenization of music software and presets. Overall, Get Lucky brought Daft Punk more mainstream attention than they'd ever had, and a whole new generation, including myself, was made aware of their genius. Even though they've had a long and successful career, much of their legacy will reside in the domination of this summer anthem. Random Access Memories promotion. The success of Get Lucky was just the first step in Daft Punk's master plan to promote their 4th studio album, Random Access Memories. They pulled out all the stops to make this album promotion something unique and memorable. Long-dead marketing tactics such as promoting music during commercial breaks and making use of billboards created a sense of wonder around this album. Constant radio play in an era just before the domination of streaming services also made the lead single, Get Lucky, inescapable. I remember being a 15-year-old kid watching SNL and seeing those first Get Lucky teaser ads, and then weeks later hearing the full track on the radio. It was enough to get me to look Daft Punk up and led to me becoming the fan I am today. Daft Punk also made use of much more non-conventional tactics, such as creating promotional masks depicting their iconic robot helmets, releasing the tracklist on Vine of all places, and airing the final trailer for the album in front of an excited Coachella crowd. The point of all this is to say that the promotion of Random Access Memories captured the zeitgeist and was a cultural shift in the world of music marketing, leading to many artists following suit. One More Time. In the 90s, Daft Punk had always wanted to work with the American singer and DJ Romanthony. They had plans to do a track with him for their first album Homework, but it didn't come to fruition. However, in the summer of 1998, they finally managed to get in the studio with him to record One More Time. Notably, One More Time made heavy use of a brand new technology called Autotune, which was developed in late 1997. Cher's famous track Believe, which was released in October of 1998, is often credited as being the catalyst for producers to start using Autotune, but Daft Punk were playing with it months beforehand. Although it was recorded in 1998, the track was shelved for 2.5 years while they completed the rest of their sophomore album, Discovery. One More Time was finally released in November of 2000 as the lead single to Discovery. The single was a massive hit and dominated dance floors thanks to its infectious chorus and anthemic nature. It's considered one of the best songs of the 2000s by many, including Rolling Stone, who placed it at number 33 on their top 100 songs of the decade, and number 307 on their list of the 500 greatest songs of all time. The track still holds a special place in the electronic music world, often being played by DJs in their live sets. It's also used quite frequently as an example of how creative the art of sampling can be. Coachella 2006. Daft Punk had reportedly been approached to perform at the Coachella Valley Music and Arts Festival several times and had been offered large sums of money, but they had turned it down every time. It wasn't until 2006, after they had released their third studio album, Human After All, that they finally agreed to play at Coachella because they had an idea for an innovative new live show, which would ultimately change the future of live electronic music. They requested that they get their money up front so that they could build their stage, and Coachella agreed, even though Daft Punk didn't tell anyone except their crew and tech people what they were building. Daft Punk were slated to perform in the Sahara Dance Tent to close out the first night of the festival. People didn't know what to expect since they hadn't done a major US gig since 1997, and they'd never before performed as the Robots. When the time finally came, Daft Punk from behind the curtains played the tones from Close Encounters of the Third Kind, as if to say they were aliens making first contact with the crowd. Then the black curtains separated to reveal Daft Punk atop a pyramid covered in LEDs, large triangular light fixtures flanking each side of the pyramid, and a huge LED screen as the backdrop. Daft Punk, in full robot garb, stood inside the pyramid, almost as if they were piloting a spaceship. After the reveal of the stage, a robotic voice started chanting and progressively got faster until their chant exploded into a live version of robot rock from their album Human After All. The entire show ended up being a mix of tracks from all three of their albums up to that point, and was an immense hit with the crowd. Furthermore, the state-of-the-art LED-covered stage enhanced the experience and was a huge leap forward in stage design, resulting in a renaissance of sorts where intricate LED screens and light shows were a must-have in all ensuing festivals. It is rumored that Daft Punk exhausted the entire United States supply of LEDs in order to build their stage, although I'm not sure of the validity of this rumor. As of 2019, Billboard critics and Coachella.com fans consider it the best show in Coachella history, and every year they are rumored to be making a return, much to everyone's disappointment when they don't. Alive 2006/2007. Daft Punk's incredibly successful Coachella performance would be the launching point for a world tour they called Alive Summer 2006, in which they would play 16 shows. Shows on this tour would use the same tracks in the same order as the Coachella show, but each time it was slightly different due to the fact that Daft Punk were still controlling many elements live. We can mix, shuffle, trigger loops, filter, distort samples, EQ in and out, transpose or destroy, and deconstruct synth lines. they said in a 2007 interview with Mixmag. In total, it took around 10 people to build and then control everything during the show, so it was not a simple two-man task. As Daft Punk put it, we compare it to a Broadway musical. There's a lot of people involved and every night is a different performance, even though it is the same music in the same show. There's a direct connection between our rig and the lights and visual of the show. The light and video engineers can also add or control layers during the show. The tour was wildly successful and demand was high, so the next year, Daft Punk returned on tour, this time calling it Alive 2007, with a slightly modified light show and track list, including the addition of an encore. On this tour, they played a total of 32 shows and even recorded a live album of their performance in Paris, France, aptly titled Alive 2007. Retroactively, the two tours, Alive Summer 2006 and Alive 2007, are grouped together and are known as Alive 2006/2007. Overall, Daft Punk's 2006 Coachella performance and subsequent tour triggered an audiovisual revolution in electronic music which continues to this day. Stronger. Starting in 2004, the multi-talented Canadian artist A-Trak toured with Kanye West as his tour DJ. Now, A-Trak wasn't just a hip-hop DJ, he was also involved with all corners of the DJ world, including electronic music. So, one day in 2006, while listening to the radio on their tour bus, Busta Rhymes' 2006 track Touch It came on, and Kanye thought the beat was cool. A-Trak informed him that it was a sample of Daft Punk's 2005 track Technologic. Apparently, Kanye had never heard of Daft Punk, so A-Trak played Kanye some of their work, and the rest is history. Kanye would sample Daft Punk's iconic 2001 track Harder, Better, Faster, Stronger for his track Stronger. Daft Punk very easily could have refused to clear the sample if they didn't like how it was used, but they really enjoyed how Kanye transformed it, so they allowed it to be released. Even though they were merely sampled on the track, Daft Punk were almost given a feature credit, as seen on these promotional copies of the track. Ultimately, they were not given feature credit, which is much more appropriate given it was just a sample. Still, Daft Punk were given plenty of credit with their robot personas appearing in the music video and on the single's cover art. Daft Punk and Kanye also shared the cover of Spin magazine in January 2008, where they even did a joint interview. All of this credit still wouldn't stop many uninformed people from accusing Daft Punk of stealing from Kanye when stumbling across the original track, Harder, Better, Faster, Stronger. Overall, Kanye's sampling of Daft Punk would prove to be a highlight for both parties' careers. Starboy / I Feel It Coming. In July 2016, during a Billboard Hitmaker Roundtable, Republic Records Executive Vice President Wendy Goldstein let it slip that The Weeknd and Daft Punk were about to have a studio session together in just 2 days. Then, a month later, in August 2016, The Weeknd posted a cryptic image on social media of two Daft Punk figures void of any additional context. This would culminate on September 21, 2016, when The Weeknd, without warning, dropped Starboy featuring Daft Punk. Many Daft Punk fans, including myself, weren't aware of these two previous hints at a collab, so the track came as a massive surprise. And 2 months later, on November 18, 2016, The Weeknd dropped a second single featuring Daft Punk called I Feel It Coming. The story of how the two tracks came to be is pretty well known, because in a BBC Radio 1 interview with Zane Lowe, The Weeknd recounted that Daft Punk had already done the music for I Feel It Coming before their studio session, and that he was tasked with recording retro-style vocals over the music. But, as Daft Punk were directing him from the control room, he could hear a drum loop in the background. So as he entered the control room to investigate, he found one of the members playing the drum loop that would become Starboy on either his phone or laptop. The Weeknd says that he put I Feel It Coming aside and immediately went to writing for Starboy, which would turn out to be the title track for his third studio album. The music video for Starboy would briefly feature Daft Punk in the form of a cryptic painting on the wall depicting them in dark cloaks in front of a barren snowscape. They would also make a cameo in the I Feel It Coming music video. The two tracks continue to gain accolades, but at the time of recording, Starboy is RIAA certified 8 times multi-platinum, and I Feel It Coming is RIAA certified 4 times multi-platinum. Despite Daft Punk's several prior collaborations, Starboy and I Feel It Coming are the only two tracks they ever received feature credits on. Starboy would also go on to top the Billboard Hot 100 chart, becoming Daft Punk's first and only track to do so. Grammys. In 2008, Daft Punk made their Grammy debut when they supported Kanye West during his performance of Stronger. They were revealed halfway through the performance inside a pyramid like the one they toured with in years prior. They wore their red eel wire encore outfits and pushed buttons on the screens of their MIDI controllers, but that was about it. A year later, in 2009, their live album, Alive 2007, would win 2 Grammy Awards, one for Best Electronic/Dance Album and another for Best Dance Recording for their single, Harder, Better, Faster, Stronger, Alive 2007, which beat out other classics like Lady Gaga's Just Dance and Rihanna's Disturbia. They did not attend the ceremony, but these were their first Grammy wins since first being nominated 11 years earlier in 1998 for Da Funk. In 2014, Daft Punk's Random Access Memories would go 5 for 5, winning Album of the Year, Best Dance/Electronica Album, Record of the Year for Get Lucky, Best Pop Duo/Group Performance for Get Lucky, and Best Engineered Album Non-Classical for Random Access Memories. While the album won 5 Grammy Awards, only 4 are credited to Daft Punk, because only the engineers on the album get trophies for the Best Engineered Album category. These 4 Grammy Awards would bring their total Grammy wins to 6. On this night, they also performed alongside Nile Rodgers, Pharrell Williams, and Stevie Wonder, among many of the session musicians who helped record the album, such as Chris Caswell on keyboard, Omar Hakim on drums, Nathan East on bass, and Paul Jackson Jr. on guitar. With such star-studded musicians on stage, it's no wonder that they produced one of the most iconic performances the Grammys has ever seen. In 2017, Daft Punk would make their final appearance at the Grammys, which would also prove to be their final appearance anywhere. They performed alongside The Weeknd, who sang I Feel It Coming, while they provided support in the form of adding some squelching synths in the back half to spice things up. Epilogue. On February 22, 2021, Daft Punk announced the end of the project via a YouTube video titled Epilogue, featuring scenes from their 2006 film Electroma. The video depicts 2 robots walking in the desert when suddenly one robot decides they want to self-destruct. The other robot begrudgingly helps their friend self-destruct by flipping the switch that is on the other's back. The first robot then walks away and then explodes into thousands of pieces, which is followed by a graphic depicting Daft Punk's hands in their iconic pyramid salute. Below the hands it reads 1993 through 2021, implying that the project has come to an end. After this, the second robot walks off into the sunset, while an isolated version of the choir from Touch is played. The video ends and that's it. No official reason was ever given as to why they decided to end the project, but their publicist Catherine Fraser confirmed that Daft Punk was indeed defunct. Although no official reason was ever given, in August of 2021, a very in-depth piece of investigative journalism from Society magazine came out, which detailed Daft Punk's final few years. It found that the 2 members of Daft Punk were simply moving in different directions in life and in the music they wanted to make. No solid conclusion is ever made, but it seems that there was no big falling out or anything of that sort. It was simply just time for the project to end. The only public comment they made about the disbanding was a short video sent by one of the members to a French news show which depicted a scene from an old Charlie Chaplin film that ends with the 2 characters smiling and walking into the sunset. Then a handwritten note appears with a big smiley face and the quote, "If love is the answer, you're home." On top of this, the music played over the scene is titled Smile, so fans have concluded that Daft Punk wants us to smile that it happened instead of being sad that it's over. Regardless, Daft Punk's disbanding really shook up the music scene because fans around the world had been hoping and speculating they'd release more music for years, only to be met with a solemn goodbye note. Tier 2. DaftPunk.com merchandise. If you were a Daft Punk fan in the 90s or 2000s, getting official Daft Punk merch was easier said than done. Other than when they were on tour, there was no centralized place selling their merch. For some fans, the most accessible Daft Punk merch was a string of official shirts sold at Hot Topic back in 2011, so yeah, it was a struggle. So, in 2014, when Daft Punk converted their website into a retro-themed merch store, many fans were elated that they could now easily buy a large selection of official merch. Initially, all the items were themed after Random Access Memories, but they slowly implemented more diverse items, some of which even referenced their past eras. Apparently, the merch store was a huge success because they'd continued to add new items to it until July 2020 when they listed their last new item. Sadly, Daft Punk shut down the store on February 22, 2021, the same day they disbanded. For a while, there was a loophole in Shopify's mobile app which allowed users to still purchase items, but that has since been fixed. Once again, we live in a world where buying Daft Punk merch is a huge struggle, and fans now have to sacrifice their firstborn in order to get an official t-shirt. I'm sorry, I forgot I wrote that down. Interstellar 5555. In October of 2000, before anything about their second album Discovery was revealed to the public, production began on Interstellar 5555, the visual realization of the album. Production of Interstellar took place in Japan because it was an anime-style movie under the supervision of legendary anime and manga artist Leiji Matsumoto and being animated by Toei Animation. Daft Punk had grown up in France in the 70s and 80s watching Leiji Matsumoto's Captain Harlock and Galaxy Express 999, so it had long been a dream of theirs to work with him. His receptiveness to the project pleased them, and the art direction for Interstellar was ripped straight out of Captain Harlock to achieve a more vintage-style anime look. The Toei Animation team worked hard throughout 2000 and 2001 and were able to complete the animations for the first 4 songs of the album by August 31st of 2001. These first 4 videos for One More Time, Aerodynamic, Digital Love, and Harder, Better, Faster, Stronger would air on Cartoon Network's anime program Toonami. Toonami's target audience was children aged 6 to 12, so Daft Punk were spreading their music to a new demographic and likely influencing many to buy their album. The first 4 videos were ultimately just a taste of the entire film and left invested viewers on a cliffhanger. The rest of the film would not be completed until April of 2003, just in time to premiere in May at the 2003 Cannes Film Festival. Daft Punk would spend much of 2003 premiering the film at various film festivals. Interstellar would also receive a limited theatrical release, and later in 2003 was released on DVD. Daft Punk promoted the film heavily in Japan and even sold figurines of the main characters. It is unknown if the film turned a profit, but they reportedly spent upwards of $3 million to produce it. However, Daft Punk likely weren't thinking about turning profits here. This was a passion project that could be thought of as an extension of their album, and in that sense, it was a major success. Tron Legacy. While Daft Punk were touring in 2007, they were contacted by Disney with a unique offer to produce an original score for an as-of-yet unnamed Tron sequel. Daft Punk were busy touring, so they initially declined, but showed interest in the project. In 2008, upon finishing their Grammy Award-winning world tour, they were once again contacted about working on the music for the Tron sequel. They ultimately accepted the offer because they believed it would be an artistically satisfying challenge, as well as the fact that they were fans of the original cult classic film and the score that electronic music pioneer Wendy Carlos had produced back in 1982. One thing that seriously worried Daft Punk, though, was the fact that they would be working for one of the biggest corporations in the world, the Walt Disney Company. Their whole career had been spent working mostly autonomously, so working for Disney was an intimidating prospect. The two parties were eventually able to come to an agreement, and Daft Punk would begin the 19-month journey that was recording the Tron Legacy score. Initially, Daft Punk were going to be working alongside another more established film score composer, but after having a few meetings with composers such as Hans Zimmer, John Powell, Harry Gregson Williams, and Christoph Beck, they decided against it. They decided instead to take on the project with the less established composer so that their vision wasn't overpowered, but they could still get the help bridging the gap between their electronic background and the orchestration they wished to include. The man they would choose for the job was Joseph Trapanese, an up-and-coming composer, arranger, and producer who also had a deep love for electronic music. The score for the film was a blend of both electronic and orchestral music, making use of a 90-piece orchestra and modern electronic music equipment. Although the use of an orchestra was an immense departure from their regular electronic music background, Daft Punk claim this is what Daft Punk would have done in 1700. We knew from the start that there was no way we were going to do this soundtrack with two synthesizers and a drum machine. A cello was there 400 years ago and will still be here in 400 years, but synthesizers that were invented 20 years ago will probably be gone in the next 20. As far as difficulty goes, Daft Punk stated that this project is by far the most challenging and complex thing we have ever been involved with. The actual production of the music coincided with the filming of the movie, as opposed to being done so afterwards, which is often the case. Director Joseph Kosinski preferred to have the music on hand while filming. Some changes were made to certain sections of the music to better fit some scenes, but for the most part, the score was completed alongside the principal photography in 2009, then mixed and mastered in the months afterwards. Mastering the score proved to be a grueling undertaking because never before had this level of electronic and orchestral elements been mixed together. The film, Tron Legacy, was released on December 17, 2010, with Daft Punk's soundtrack album of the same name being released 2 weeks earlier. The finished product ended up being a 22-plus track masterpiece, totaling around 1 hour. Various bonus tracks were available on different platforms, but the vanilla soundtrack album was 22 tracks long. A collaboration between Daft Punk and Jay-Z was recorded and was intended to be the track played over the end credits, but it was ultimately scrapped because it didn't quite fit the tone of the film. While the original score and soundtrack album Daft Punk produced was praised for its unique blend of electronic and orchestral elements, the film was not as well received. Overall, Daft Punk's involvement with the film was an overwhelmingly positive one, and it gave them more experience working with live instruments and collaborating with others. Daft Punk also notably made a cameo in the film as DJs in the End of Line Club. In the credits, their characters are simply known as masked DJs. Talkbox, Autotune, and vocoder. It's impossible to talk about Daft Punk without mentioning their consistent use of voice modifiers throughout their career. Starting with their 1997 debut album, Homework, we see Daft Punk using a talkbox on Around the World. Then, as previously mentioned, Daft Punk used the newly released Autotune in 1998 when recording One More Time with Romanthony. After this is when Daft Punk took on the robot personas and began using vocoders on their voices. It's widely believed that they used a 90s Digitech Talker vocal effect pedal with a talkbox preset to achieve their robotic-sounding voices. Harder, Better, Faster, Stronger from their second album Discovery was their first track to feature this vocoder effect and set a precedent for how most Daft Punk vocals would sound for the rest of their time together. Their last track to use this vocoder effect was 2016's I Feel It Coming, which they made with The Weeknd. French. Another thing that's hard not to mention when talking about Daft Punk is the fact that they're French. And while their nationality doesn't impact their music all that much, Daft Punk's French status helped the world discover what treasures the French music scene had. Their 1997 debut album Homework really legitimized the French music scene as a force to be reckoned with, paving the way for future French artists such as Justice, Gesaffelstein, and Madeon, to name a few. Around the World. Released in 1997 as a track on their debut album Homework and later as a single, Around the World was Daft Punk's first global hit, which charted around the world. The track is mostly remembered for its sole lyric, which repeats 80 times in the radio edit and 144 times in the full-length version. In fact, a study analyzing 15,000 songs from the Billboard Hot 100 chart from 1958 through 2017 found Around the World to be the most repetitive song to ever appear on the chart. Although extremely repetitive, it's a prime example of when vocals transcend their literal meaning and become part of the music. The fact that the vocals were performed with the talkbox, as previously mentioned, also helps them become something beyond just a dude repeating the same three words over and over. Another pivotal part of Around the World's success as a single was the music video that accompanied it. It was directed by the brilliant Michel Gondry and simply featured 5 different groups of characters performing a choreographed routine to the music. Each group of characters represented a different layer or instrument in the track. The set was also designed to look like a giant vinyl record. All of the elements came together perfectly, resulting in one of the most satisfying videos ever made. The video quickly became very popular. After all, it was the 90s when MTV still actually played music videos and helped many songs enter the homes of people who otherwise might not be introduced to different types of music. Nowadays, the music video for Around the World is considered a classic and has helped the track maintain its legacy as an all-time great in the dance music world. 2017 Pop-Up Shop. In conjunction with their 2017 Grammy performance with The Weeknd, Daft Punk announced a week-long pop-up shop which would be held at the Maxfield Gallery on Melrose Avenue in West Hollywood, California. This pop-up shop would last from February 11th, the day before the Grammy performance, to February 19th. The hype surrounding this pop-up shop was immense. On the first day, which I attended, there was a line wrapping around the entire block, and some people who were at the back of the line never got in because of how many people there were and how slowly the line moved. The pop-up shop itself was basically a museum of Daft Punk's history mixed in with some designer merch for sale. On display were items from throughout their career, like props from music videos and vintage posters. Most notably, they had several iterations of the robots on display, which made for some really awesome photo ops. I even touched the leather on the Alive 2007 Encore jackets, which was so soft. The items they had for sale ranged from stuff that was already available on their website to one-of-a-kind jackets and jewelry that went for upwards of $1,000. The full list of brands they worked with included Gosha Rubchinsky, Off-White, Enfants Riches de Premis, Darktron, Hervé Manufacturier, Han Cholo, New Era, Medicom, K-Way, Whammo, Russell Yo-Yo, Fisher Space Pen, and Mercatorama. I probably butchered a few of those, so please forgive me. Most of the stuff was incredibly expensive, which kind of pissed a lot of people off, but that's pretty par for the course with Daft Punk merch. As previously mentioned, the pop-up shop proved to be more of a museum than anything, and it really marked a point in Daft Punk's career where they began to slowly draw the project to a close. And with that, we conclude part 1 of the ultimate Daft Punk Iceberg Explained. Being that this was just the surface level, you probably knew a lot of that, but I'd be happy to hear if you learned anything new. Is there anything on the iceberg you're unfamiliar with? Like I said, this video took me months to complete, but I'm sure if this video does well, I'll be extra motivated to complete part 2 in a timely manner, so it'd be greatly appreciated if you liked or shared the video. I think leaving comments are also good for the algorithm. I don't really know, I'm not exactly a YouTuber, I'm just a person who really loves Daft Punk who's making this series on their free time. Anyways, thanks for watching, and I hope to see you in a future video.